It appears that I'm live, and I think why is it paused? Ooh, okay. Oh, I gotta sneeze, of course. Oh my God, sorry. Okay. I might have to sneeze again. Oh, so sorry. The other day when I did my live, my phone started ringing. I'm sorry. That's live. Hold on. I'm just gonna grab my smoothie. I hope you can hear me okay. It looks like everything's fine with the audio. Oh my God. Simple pleasures. I'm in my son's room so I can get some decent natural lighting. And here's an original painting of Salvador Dali by a Mexican artist. I wish I knew his name. If you know, wait, which way do I go? If you know who this artist is, by all means, leave his name in the comments. I love him. Bought it back in the day in Big Bear Lake, California. And I'll show you around my son's room a little bit. So this is the cat, obviously. This is a really cool farm bed that I actually bought in Michigan years ago at an actual farm sale. I'll show you. Isn't that neat? It's metal. Sorry, kitty. Stay there. No, stay there, kitty. Stay. Oh. So we built her little cat runs up here so that she can go up there and look out the window. My son has his airplanes up there. He will one day be in the Air Force. Presumably, that is his plan. Alrighty, righty. So, this video is super important if you are a woman or know a woman or a girl who's about to be a woman. And by that I mean menses, monthly menses. This is a video for you if you've ever been called or have ever called someone or know someone who is occasionally called a crazy bitch. This is the video for you. Oh my gosh. Maybe you have heard of this before, but maybe not. Uh, there are women who, around their periods, they get PMS, they don't feel great, they wake up, they go to work, they feel like crap all day, they come home, in a couple of days they feel better. And then there are the women who feel like crap a lot, get up, feel like crap, go to work, get fired, come home, have a fight with their boyfriend or husband, maybe break up, whatever, yell at their kids for stuff that she usually doesn't yell at them about, where everything pisses her off and triggers her. This, you might have known a woman or think that you yourself, maybe you're bipolar, but maybe you're not. Uh, there are a lot of women out there like this. And in America, the medical system doesn't really focus on this problem. In other countries, they do. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I'm talking about. So, last year, sometime, one of these actresses came out and was talking about how she has been diagnosed with PMDD. What is PMDD? PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I'll say it again, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in the diagnostic manual as a mood disorder, but it also is very much physical. And the way that it shows up is very hard for people to diagnose. Actually, it's not that hard to diagnose. It's diagnosed by looking at the patterns in a woman's life. Basically, the patterns of destruction, the patterns of getting fired from jobs or quitting, the patterns of uh, relationship breakups, friendship breakups, those kinds of patterns, the patterns of destruction. Because it's not just those few days before the period, premenstrual syndrome, PMS. It's not like that. For many women, it's half or more than half of the month. For many women, we get this little window right after our period. Some women, it can take several days after their period till they start to feel good. And boy, oh boy, does that time feel amazing. Where there's nothing happening hormonally. There's nothing going on hormonally. And that time feels truly amazing. And then, boom, one day it can either just snap and flip or it slowly creeps back in. And usually that starts around ovulation. For some women, it's before ovulation. It sort of depends, but it's ovulation all the way through. That's like 2 weeks till the first day of your next period, and then a few days after that to come down. Excuse me. Sorry. I'm allergic to cats, and we have a cat. So, premenstrual dysphoric disorder is not uncommon. It's just not something that the American medical industry is all that interested in. And I learned this after I was diagnosed with PMDD, which wasn't until I was in my mid 40s because it got really, really, really bad. For some women, you've got just that tension and body pain. Some women, it can show up very physically, where the cramps and everything are so bad that literally she can't get out of. It's like labor. It's horrible. Thank God I have not had that bad of a time physically, but there are plenty of times that I'll feel like fevery, like my whole body just aches and my brain's hurt, and it's just hard to do anything and to get along and to just be happy. It's just impossible. But many women have these severe, severe periods. But most women have the mood disorder where it's just uh, internal tension constantly, or even internal rage. And it was said to me one time, someone asked if I had PMS, and I'm like, I don't know. No, this is years and years and years ago, decades ago. So I don't know. And they're like, well, do you have a boyfriend? I said, no. And they're so like, well, then you don't know. So what my point is there is once you start getting in relationships like marriage, serious boyfriend, maybe living together, and children, that's when it really becomes a little more obvious. Because it seems like, and I've been for years on Facebook pages for PMDD help, a couple of them where I have posted and read other women's posts about what it's like, their symptoms, and how it comes on and how it feels. So there's that little window of time where we feel amazing, and we consider that must be what it feels like to be normal. Uh, and then the rest of the time, we just are pissed off, unfortunately, edgy. And closer to the period it gets, the worse it gets. And so things like um, the ability to even just keep the house clean and get dinner made and everything becomes so difficult. The little things that people do in the household or at work that normally you can just look at and be like, oh, whatever, become just so offensive and so irritating. And I'll give you an example because I am now in this wonderful period of time in my menses. I'm not on my menses, but between ovulation and period is your menses, essentially. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you're an OB-GYN. So, um, I can tell my kids, hey, you know what? If you make a bowl of soup and you don't rinse it out all the way, the dishwasher isn't getting it very clean. So you really need to make sure that your soup doesn't get dried on there because for some reason the dishwasher in this particular soup that my son likes, a Progresso, it's not coming out of the glass dishes in the dishwasher. Could you make sure it's rinsed out? And of course, does he? No, he doesn't. And I'm like, hey, you need to rinse it out. Hey, you need to rinse that out. Okay, that's like normal people. During this period of time, it's like I want to throw the bowl against the wall. I want to scream at him for not frigging listening to me and making it happen. Like, how many times, and I'm being very calm right now, versus how I feel like behaving. Remember, I said this is a mood disorder. PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, is a mood disorder, regardless of the painful physical symptoms. So, and other things like my son gets a bunch of birthday money, but he still wants me to pay for his movie ticket and his snacks and everything and his video games, and because he's trying to save his birthday money. And but I'm supposed to foot the bill for all of his other stuff when it's slow season for my company and times are hard right now for everybody. Plus, you've got to learn, if you want to save your money, then you need to cut back on your snacks and your video games and the other things that you want. That's how saving works. You've got to save, which means you can't just go spending all your money. And you're certainly not going to spend all my money when I'm the one responsible for the bills and the roof and the food and the everything. Okay? So, and you can hear the tone of my voice is not very feminine and flowery and fun. Oh my gosh, I'm a sweet, happy woman. Right? This tone of voice tends to put people off. I'm sorry. And so it almost exacerbates the problem. Let's say you're talking to your coworkers or your boss or your boyfriend or your kids in this tone of voice, and they're like already on guard, you know. So it's a mood disorder. Um, so going back years ago when I was first diagnosed with this, is because it got really, really, really bad, and I will reveal to you what that means in a minute. Um, Most women have a mood disorder. They might even, like I said, get fired or break up with their relationships or just freak out. And they might have very bad physical symptoms, pain, and all of that. A very small percentage of women actually become suicidal, and I did. For when I was about 45 years old, for about 3 months in a row, I literally tried to off myself because I just was in a very toxic living situation with bad relationships all around me. And I just couldn't believe it. And I just wanted out. I just wanted out of here, away from those people, out of this life. And it just seemed absolutely horrible and toxic. And I got to the mental illness stage of things where I was actually asking my children if it was okay with them if I killed myself. That's how crazy I was during that time period. And yes, I've been called a crazy bitch. Yes, I have. I've called myself a crazy bitch because once you kind of snap out of it, a lot of times it gets the worst right before you start your period or right after you start your period. And but I always had very abnormal periods, irregular periods. So it was very hard for me to track. Like, oh, I'm freaking out today. Oh my gosh, look, I finally started my period. For years, I didn't see a correlation. After my children were born, my periods regulated themselves. And I still didn't quite put it together. Because the things I was freaking out about were real things. Like, really, rinse your bowl out. I've said it too many times, and these things would just get to the point. These things wouldn't get to the point. I would get to the point where I could no longer tolerate repeating myself and the same things are wrong. And now I am going to fix it once and for all by freaking out. I'm going to freak out so freaky outy that you will never forget to rinse your bowl. So I was in a situation 2015, 16, 17, 18, I don't know, 19, 20. No, wasn't quite that late. By COVID, I was out and I had figured it out and removed myself from all those bad toxic relationships. And the people I was surrounding myself with were a huge problem. So once I realized that I needed to surround myself with a higher quality of person, I was letting people choose me. I've always been friends with just everybody. I mean, I'm friends with anybody. But what I realized is the people who were choosing me were using me. And I had to stop that because those relationships were toxic and they were triggering this horrible reaction every month because I'm being used and abused and I'm going to put a stop to it and I'm so hurt and all of these things. So I literally Googled how to make better friends because I guess I hadn't been taught that and I wasn't very discerning. Some people are born with this knowledge, but I just am not. I've also been diagnosed on the autistic spectrum, so go figure. Um, these aren't things that come particularly naturally to me. I was under the impression until I was into my 30s that everybody basically was trying to be a good person and trying to be honest and all of that because I was thinking that everybody was basically having the same experience and same goals and ambitions as far as being a good person that I was. And boy, oh boy, was I wrong. But I kept forgetting and allowing people in my life who chose me and saw me as vulnerable and a target to be used and abused. So that's when I finally started learning that I had to not only cut those relationships off, no matter how long I had had them, relationships that were damaging to me, but also be very much more careful and discerning. And when I Googled how to make better friends, I mean, basically the number one thing was give it lots and lots of time before you really open up and let someone into your life. You really need to see who they are, not listen to what they say, because everybody says they're honest. Everybody says they're a good person and they've been used and abused by everybody else. But I really have to now just sit back and watch. And quite honestly, I'm not someone that needs a lot of friends. I don't need to socialize. I don't get lonely. I've always hung out with myself. So I'm good, really. And life is much easier for me. And so I do have children and they need friends. So that's been kind of a challenge, but that's a whole other story. So when I discovered that I was premenstrual with PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, I started videoing myself in the throes of this mood. And my intention was to make a documentary, which I still must do. I feel drawn and obligated to do this, but it's it's like sometimes when people turn the camera on themselves and they're being really dramatic, you think like they're an attention whore. So I haven't done anything with these videos because that's 100% not the point of this. The point of this is so that you can see what it looks like and be like, oh my gosh, that's me, or oh my gosh, that's my wife or girlfriend or mom, because women are killing themselves over this. And I just looked on one of the Facebook pages, and there are women who literally have their children taken away from them, and they lose custody of their kids because they can't keep it together and their kids are suffering. And I totally get it. I'm lucky that didn't happen to me. So, or my kids, really. I'm lucky that didn't happen to my children, is really what it comes down to. So during this time period, it must have been 20, maybe 18. Uh, and I started researching like crazy. And what I found was um, in other countries, Australia and the UK, when a woman is arrested, for example, or goes to her doctor, they immediately pinpoint if it's PMDD. They ask her a bunch of questions and it's really easy to diagnose. Like I said, is there a pattern of destruction in her life? If there is, then it's most probably premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and there are treatments, and they kind of work, they do, they don't. You end up kind of going through and trying a bunch of different things. I'll touch on that in a little bit. So, but in America, the medical industry and the prison system, they don't know or they don't care. And what I found is that 60% of women who are locked up right on or before their periods. And then they're the same ones that are the troublemakers every single month. You can rely on it that they're getting written up, they're getting in fights or whatever. And it's unfortunate that we're talking about women being in prison because they freak out on their periods, but many times that's exactly how it happens. They lose their shit and go crazy. But then we get a chance to observe them. And part of what I would love to do with this documentary, if you know how to produce and make a documentary, I would love to hear from you, because I am just one person and I'm functional about half the time. But I have all this footage and I would love to go into the prisons, and they have records. I would love to interview some of these women and who haven't been diagnosed in the American prison systems, get them diagnosed and see if there isn't better treatment than being in prison. Because in the UK, for example, I read a story about one woman who was diagnosed with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I don't remember what she did, but she got arrested for freaking out and breaking stuff. I don't know what she did exactly, but in public. And they locked her up and immediately recognized that this woman has premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And so she was then mandated by the courts to eat 3 meals a day. If she didn't eat 3 meals a day, then they were going to have to lock her up and feed her 3 meals a day. Now, why? Well, because one of the first things to go during that period of time is self-care. And women lose, like I said, they might not clean their house, they might have a hard time cooking dinner. Well, we have a hard time also feeding ourselves. And it's like we don't have an appetite, or we don't feel well, our stomachs hurt, we just don't feel good. And self-care flies out the window. Regular showers, things like that, just for many women, we stop taking care of ourselves, and we're in just this funky fog, and we're in pain, and it's the mood, and it's just everything. And then we have our periods and snap out of it, either right on the day or a few days later, and then we're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. But you know what? If we know that this is our problem, we know we only have a certain amount of days to feel great. So then we might go into this like manic stage where we're trying to get everything done that we couldn't get done the whole rest of the time, because then we know we're going to slip back into this funk that's going to take over our lives and ruin our lives again every single month. So that's why it very commonly is misdiagnosed as bipolar, because it's not bipolar. The cause is not the same as bipolar, and that's part of the problem, is they don't exactly know what causes it. Many people think it's a hormone imbalance. It isn't. The hormones are normal. It's like a reaction to the hormones. It's almost like an allergy, maybe, to the hormones. But what I've found out, and I've been researching this like crazy, because what else can I do? I want to not only help myself and you guys. I will be 53 in August. Where's my menopause? I have had enough of this madness. But I had such irregular periods, and I started my periods so late. I like had one period at 14, one period at 15, maybe a couple at 16. So this could just go on for a long time. And the more I experience these problems, the more I research and the more I share with others. And I really didn't want, it's taken me a very long time just to do the YouTube at all, but to do the YouTube streaming live stuff and to put up long form videos like this because I don't want to be a star. I don't want to be targeted. I just am trying to help people. I am not trying to gain attention for myself. Um, but like and subscribe. Just kidding. I mean, do and share this with some crazy bitch that you know, or someone who's married to a crazy bitch, or someone who has a crazy bitch for a mother. So, um, in America, we do not recognize this necessarily. I went to the doctor after trying to kill myself. After the first 2 months didn't work, I tried something a little more violent and it didn't work. And I snapped out of it and went to the doctor and I showed him what I had done. I'm like, I need help. And he saw what I did. He's like, you're playing with fire. I said, I am not playing. I really thought he would like call in the straitjacket people and put me in a paddy wagon and haul me away to the mental institution. And I wanted that. That's really what I wanted. I needed to be protected from myself. And he didn't do that. He's like, you're playing with fire. And sent me to a psychiatrist who wanted to put me on meds. Well, I had stayed off of meds my whole life. I was a very sick child, and so I really didn't respect or desire anything from the medical industry because I had so much medical trauma. Another video. And of course, my meeting with this psychiatrist was about a month away. So by the time I saw her, I was already back into the cycle of this mood disorder. And needless to say, we didn't get along. And I already did not like psychiatrists because all she's going to do is try to medicate me. However, at the time, I knew that I needed medication. It was no longer, I no longer had the luxury of being holistic because it wasn't working for me and I had children and I knew I needed something. So I went ahead and got on Prozac. Now, Prozac is, yes, they give it for depression, and you have to be on it for quite some time before it really kicks in. But the thing about PMDD is you can just take it during the like 5 days leading up to your cycle, and it like works like this. It just works. You take it and you're like, boom. So the first time, I got something in my eye, probably cat hair. The first time I took this stuff, my crazy mind, which I didn't even realize what my mind was like until I took a med. My crazy mind, with all my thoughts going boo, 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 and mad, my mood disorder, it all just went. It went, and I don't mean by a flat line. I mean it got organized, and for the first time in my life, I literally sat there, and I wasn't really thinking anything. I didn't have a sense of rage or tension. I was just sitting there observing the world. And I was so shocked by this. I'm like, this must be what it feels like to be normal. I was just sitting there observing, not having 1,000 thoughts racing around, bumping into one another, and feeling like I had to do something about it, the anxiety of it. So, for quite some time, a couple or few years, I took Prozac before my periods. And that worked out pretty darn well. And once I was able to, I still had some symptoms, but it wasn't like I was trying to kill myself. Once I was out of those toxic relationships and had a more stable feeling life, I went back off of the Prozac, and it took me months. It felt like months before the vertigo went away, even though I was only taking them like 5 to 10 days a month. And I would call them my happy pills. And they didn't fix everything, but it sure as hell helped a lot. And I didn't have clinical depression because half the time I was fine. I was happy. And it was just during that period of time. So it took me a while. I went back off, or I went off of the Prozac, and the vertigo finally went away. And now, every so often, I'll take one. Just every so often. And I've kept my life free, for the most part, of toxic relationships. And so now I only yell at my children. It's true, but um, everybody, I think, raises their voice at their kids. And that's what I do. I'm not a crazy bitch anymore. And it got bad. So um, now what I've learned is, and some new research seems to have come out about this as well. So the research, some of the research is indicating that it could be elevated or decreased. I'm tending to think it's elevated, norepinephrine in the bloodstream. So when I was growing up, I was deathly asthmatic, and I would have to go to the hospital and they shoot me up with adrenaline, norepinephrine. Basically, epinephrine is what they give you for asthma attacks. And that feeling of the buzzing and the everything, it's like my whole body's buzzing, and it's a lot of anxiety, and you feel kind of like this heightened sense of everything. And that's not the feeling of PMDD, but I can see how a concentration of that in the bloodstream can make women very amped up. And you know what it feels like to have a rush of adrenaline. You're like in a heightened sense of um, basically fight or flight. And so, if you can imagine that slowly creeping in and living with it for a couple of weeks, how you would feel or behave. It's a neurotransmitter, so it's going to change your mood. Hormones change our moods. So, this research that I found went along with what I had found as the best, not cure, but reliever of my symptoms. Okay, so I'm going to rewind before I tell you exactly what that was. When I was pregnant with my second son, I would get the worst heart palpitations. I literally thought my heart was going to stop. And one day I was napping and I had a dream that my heart did stop. And I woke up like, I had a dream, my heart stopped and I died. And then I woke up in a huge panic. Well, I've always been really, really lucky that I stumble upon the answers. I mean, I'm always looking, so it's not like I'm not looking. But when I was pregnant, standing in the checkout line, and there's a little pamphlet about magnesium, and I'm flipping through it, and the woman in the introduction of the book talks about being pregnant and having heart palpitations. I bought it. It was like a $5 book, and I bought it. And she talks about how the OB-GYN was like, well, that's just pregnancy. That's pregnancy. Well, no, duh, it's pregnancy. Pregnant women get heart palpitations and cramps and all this stuff, but why? No, it's pregnancy. That is the lamest answer. The answer is a magnesium deficiency. So I bought some magnesium, and the first time I took the magnesium, my heart calmed down and I stopped having the palpitations. And when they would creep back in, I would just have a little more magnesium and it'd go away, and all was well. Fast forward to um, leg cramps at night, right? What helps with leg cramps at night? Magnesium. Okay, let's think of what else has magnesium in it. What is magnesium? Um, and what is, where and when do you need magnesium? And if you're short of magnesium, why? It's because we're dehydrated, right? If you're dehydrated, you need electrolytes. Electrolytes are things like potassium, magnesium, da 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 da. So rewind that. Okay, why would we have a concentration of norepinephrine in our bloodstreams? Maybe we're dehydrated. I looked up the symptoms of dehydration, and lo and behold, almost every single one is a symptom of PMDD. Almost every single one is a symptom of PMDD. And so I started hydrating like crazy. And not only did my body feel better, so much less pain, my mood elevated. I just felt better. And I wasn't just drinking water because we're not made of water. I know everybody says we're 70% water. No, we're not. When you go to the hospital, do they give you IV bags full of water? It's saline. That's the electrolyte part of it. We're salt water, just like the ocean. And we need to replenish with enough of that. Not every single time we drink can't be made of saline solution. So it's a balance as well. But um, it's hard for me to remember to do, but I try very hard. I've never been a huge drinker, eight glasses a day. Are you kidding me? Well, you know what? I realized that it's really not that hard to do. And especially if you are dehydrated. So women with premenstrual dysphoric disorder who are not staying up with their self-care are also not going to be like, oh, let me hydrate. So helping her or having reminders, if it is you, having big jugs of water with what I use is the calm powder, which is calcium, magnesium, other, you can find something that works for you. It's not hard to find, but I like the calm powder. And drink it. And even on the bottle, it'll say, until you have a loose stool. If you're having diarrhea, you're a little too much, so back off a little bit. But we need to stay hydrated to keep our blood hydrated so that we don't have that serious, dense concentration of the epinephrine, norepinephrine in our bloodstreams, which makes us feel like we want to just fight or flight, right? So we're either going to fight or we're going to run away, and sometimes both. Um, that is the best thing that I have seen, and for myself, that has worked the most. And now let me really try to drive this point home. I was trying to kill myself. When you look at the symptoms of dehydration, um, one of the symptoms is hallucinations. Now, hallucination, I realized, can be as simple as thinking someone it's like paranoia, paranoid delusions, hallucinations, things like that. I know that it's time for me to start hydrating when I'm in traffic. And I think everyone at the stoplight around me is looking at me and they're out to get me like a video game or something. I know that sounds crazy. It's because it's crazy. And these signs and symptoms, and then, I like, I used to think I was competitive, but now I know it's something different. It's fight or flight. So now I know that's one of the warning signs that it is time for me to start hydrating. The other thing is, and this sounds horrible, but I'm really being vulnerable and honest and open with you guys. So maybe some of the things that I say will make sense to you, and you'll be like, oh my God, I do the same thing. I love my animals. I love dogs. I love my cat, even though I'm allergic to her. Uh, when I start calling my animals names. Like, I can't even say it. You know how when you get up to walk somewhere and your animals like are in your way and you can be like, oh, look out, everybody, look out. I mean, I've got two dogs and they get in my way a lot. They're actually service animals, so they're kind of trying to help me. But when I start getting my mood issue, a mood disorder going on, I start calling them stupid MNFers. Look out, you stupid MNFers. And it's like, bing, 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 warning, warning. Time to hydrate because that mood has gone south. I love my animals and I feel bad even when I'm doing it. So that's when I know I really need to hydrate. And this might look kind of gross because I just had a chocolate shake in it. But this is 500. This is, well, so this is 16 ounces right here. And if I fill that up with water with a little dash of magnesium, hold on, a few times a day, it makes a world of difference in my life. I promise that you should try this out. Okay. So most women don't get to the point where they're trying to kill themselves. When you get to this point, you really think you are completely justified and you just want out. You just want out of your body. So I was trying to get out of my body, and this is the result. Well, my arms are hairy right now. Can you see? Can you see this? That's a scar. I found I found the biggest vein in my arm or artery or whatever that was in my arm and cut it open. I figured for sure that would work. It didn't work. It didn't work. And I only sigh like that, not out of disappointment that it didn't work, but out of disappointment, frustration that it ever got that bad. And this is why I'm making this video. Even if it's not that bad for you, or if it is, girlfriend, go drink some friggin' water right now. Right now. If all you have is sea salt, most people have sea salt. If all you have is sea salt, put some sea salt in your hand until your body says that's enough. Dissolve it in the water and drink it. Boom. Do that every day. Go get yourself some sea salt. Go get yourself some magnesium, potassium. Go get yourself some electrolytes. And it can't be like Gatorade every day because it's loaded with sugar and that'll exacerbate other problems. I completely understand. I've been there. I know. I am not talking out because I read some books. I'm talking because I tried. I've been there. I tried. And most women do not succeed. When they have premenstrual dysphoric disorder and they're suicidal, they fail usually several times before they succeed. And the reason is they don't have a plan. It's impulsive. And that was exactly right. I was just looking around for whatever I had. And the reason why this didn't work is because I didn't have a razor blade ready to go. I had just a dull little pocket knife in my purse, was the sharpest thing that I really had, and it didn't work. And the pills, I tried to take some, my back is broken, and I used to take painkillers, pharma painkillers, right? Um, and I'm super sensitive. So I had a bunch of them because I can only take like half at a time. I don't take them at all anymore, but I could only take half at a time because they would make me super sick. So I had a bunch of them because I couldn't barely even tolerate them. And I took a bunch of those and it didn't work. Nothing even happened. And so that's an interesting thing too. Nothing really happened. Why? Why did nothing happen at that time? But normally I'm so sensitive to them, they make me super sick. No clue. the grace of God, probably. So, so then I thought, damn with the pills, because I tried twice with the pills. Damn the pills, I'm going to try this other thing. Now, this wasn't a premeditated thing, it was very impulsive. And that's why most women, when they try to kill themselves, when they have premenstrual dysphoric mood disorder, they fail several times until they realize it's not going to work unless I have a plan for next time. That's when it gets super dangerous. So it was right after this time period that the town I was living in, another woman actually did kill herself. And when I heard a little bit about what had happened to her the day that she did that, I couldn't even believe it. She was fired from her job, got in a fight with her boyfriend, a drunken fight, no less. And then she hung herself in her bathroom, and her little 9-year-old daughter found her. And this wasn't her first attempt. And I didn't want to be insensitive, but I had to reach out. So after a few months, I reached out to her mother and let her know that I knew her daughter, and I really had some questions for her. I told her my story, and she was like, that sounds just like her. Just like her. We thought she was bipolar, but that sounds just like her. And this woman was a nurse. Not the woman who killed herself, her mother, and still had no clue that it was premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And, getting fired yet again, getting in another fight with her boyfriend, and boom, done. And she had a plan. She had gone on YouTube, learned how to hang herself, had the thing ready so that she wouldn't fail again. And she didn't fail again. And now she's got a daughter with no mother. And what's worse is her daughter found her. And what's even worse is that her daughter probably will suffer from premenstrual dysphoric disorder herself and will not know it. Who's going to tell her? So that's why I am doing this right now. I am doing this so you can save someone. I am doing this so we can save the women who are suffering, but also the women who have yet, the girls who have yet to turn into women, who have mothers who went through this. My mother went through this. She had no idea. She also tried to kill herself. Didn't work. Thank God. But she was miserable. I remember her being miserable. And as a child, you don't know why. You don't get it. You have no idea what's happening. It's your only frame of reference, so you just don't get it. Now I get it. Thank God I've got boys. And I am very transparent with my boys. I mean, sadly, like I told you, I asked them permission to kill myself. So once I was very much over this point in my life, I talked to them about what had happened and why I was behaving that way, and let them know that when you have a girlfriend or a wife, you really want to try to make sure you're with someone with healthy, normal periods. And if you're not, that you know how to help her. I mean, it would be definitely better just to be with someone with normal, healthy periods, but, you know, I don't want to say that I wouldn't want my boys to be with someone like me, because I have a lot of amazing qualities half the time. And if I had had support and knowledge, my life could have been completely different, and I would have been much more functional. Although it is still a struggle. Like I said, I'm almost 53 years old, and I'm still getting regular periods and all the wonderful symptoms. But now I believe I know how to do it. So, like I said, hydration. Hydration with water and electrolytes. You must have those electrolytes. The salt, which I'm calling the electrolytes salt, is what conducts electricity. When you're not conducting electricity, what happens? Your energy goes down, your muscles hurt, you can't think straight, you start having weird thoughts, which I'm going to call hallucinations. You're just not thinking straight, you know? And the other thing that helps me a lot is um, pampering helps. It helps a lot. It doesn't cure it. It wouldn't work if I weren't hydrating a lot. And as a matter of fact, when I'm done making this video, I'm going to go hydrate because I really haven't been hydrating enough. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because I'm just feeling like, "Grr." I'm gonna go hydrate, take my own advice, and do it with me. Share this video with a crazy bitch that you know, please. Uh, and if you are a crazy bitch or you know a crazy bitch, comment below. Tell that story. Research a little bit. Look at the difference between how women are acknowledged and diagnosed in Australia and the UK versus the United States. In the US, they love putting people in jail. And why do I bring that up? Well, it's because I was married once, very briefly. And this man I had to completely cut him off out of my life. Tried to stay friends with him for who knows what reason. Well, I later realized it's because he kept trying just to have a reason to continually have a relationship, keep that door open in some way, shape, or form. And I literally just had to move and change my phone number and just cut him off completely because it was so toxic for me. And we were married, and he was an alcoholic, which is your first sign. Like, just no, no. And one night we went out, and I had like, I can't really drink very much. At the time, I was still trying to drink a little bit because, why not? I like a glass of wine here and there. So I think at the time, I maybe was drinking Prosecco. I think I had two little tiny splits of Prosecco over about 5 hours. But he kept drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking, and that's what he did. And actually, when we got married, when he proposed and everything, he was not drinking, he was in spiritual life counseling and all this other literal BS. So he started drinking on our wedding night, of course. And shortly after that, everything really went south. It was actually, we got married in October. By February, things were really going south. It was his birthday in February. And although I really did not want to go out to dinner for his birthday, because by that time I hated him, I was like, whatever, I'm a good wife, I'll just go out. And I wanted to love this man. But it was just so toxic, so unhealthy. So we went out and had a good night, no problems. But I wanted to grab a pizza or something for the kids on the way home. And he had such a big problem with that. Just talking shit. And these are my children. Talking shit about my kids. And I just had it. And I just freaked the fuck out. And so we were at a stoplight, and I got out of the car and walked into the gas station and went in the bathroom and called a friend to kind of talk me down. And my friend was like, "Do you want me to come get you?" I should have just said, "Yes, please come get me." I was like, "No, no, no, I'll be okay." So I come out of the bathroom, and everyone's standing around looking at me, and there's cops there who want to talk to me. And I'm crying because I hate this motherfucker. Am I allowed to say? Sorry, bleep, 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 bleep. So, um, and of course, he's such a good liar and so full of shit that he was able to talk to the cops, and he made me sound like I was the crazy one, which I mean, granted, I was kind of crazy, but it was because I was in this toxic relationship. I allowed myself to get into a very toxic, crazy situation, and he knew exactly how to push those buttons and loved it. Now, looking back, I realize he just had fun doing that. So, on the ride home, man, I was just out of my mind screaming at him all the things about him that I absolutely hated. And we get home, and I just sat in the car because I didn't want to go in like that. And by that time, I was, I'd had two little Prosecco splits over the course of many hours. I was not drunk or anything like that. So I sat in the car, and he came out to the car and was like, I told the kids what's going on. I'm leaving. I'm going to spend the night at my friend's house. I don't care that he's leaving, but why did he tell the kids what's going on? I mean, that was the whole point of me not going inside till I was able to calm down. He's like, get out of the car. So I get out of the car and I go inside. I was like, hey, boys, blah, 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 blah. Just trying to be just normal as can be. I don't want to traumatize them with all this drama. I was clear-headed enough not to do that. Well, so he didn't leave. He just kept taunting me, knowing that he's going to get a reaction at some point. And so I went outside and I shoved him, and he turned around and body slammed me to the ground. He lifted me up and body slammed me flat on my back. And he was on top of me. And so, I couldn't get him off of me. I was trying to get him off of me, and since he picked me up and body slammed me, his head was about right here, and I just took a big bite of his hair and ripped it out of his head, and he got up and left. I know that sounds crazy, you guys. I'm aware. So he runs to his friend's house, and then I get a call from the police that they're coming over to arrest me for attacking him. So I went to jail that night, and they let this drunk husband of mine and his drunk friend watch my children and drink all. My kids told me all about it. They were just drinking and making fun of me all night long while I sat in jail. But literally in jail, it was just a little tiny jail, and I was in a little cell all by myself. It was the most peace I had had in so long because he wasn't there. It was quiet, it was dark, and I was just able to meditate and just have some peace because I didn't realize how much he was just effing with me constantly, pushing my buttons to get a reaction out of me. And interestingly enough, he bailed me out, and then he had his attorney get rid of everything. And I was traumatized by this, and it wasn't until the nights following that I recalled everything that had happened. Because he said I had attacked him, and I just kind of went blank and froze up and just, I don't know what happened. Well, interestingly enough, the next day after that incident, I started my period. Had that happened 2 weeks prior, he wouldn't have been able to push my buttons like that. Everything would have been different. So, um, I'm making a video. I think my son is not. Can you wait a few minutes, please? So, this is when and why I started researching about women in jail. Because when I stumbled upon some of this research, I was particularly interested in it and realized that 60% of the women who are incarcerated are so on or near their periods. And I was like, bing! Was I a crazy bitch at times? 100%, 1,000%. Did I know why? No. Did I feel justified? Yes. Did I feel bad after the fact? Like, that was weird. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Interestingly, though, it was after this time period that I cut my arm open. And after I did that, I did not feel necessarily ashamed or anything like that. And I thought that was peculiar. And the reason I think it is because I was in an altered state. So once I came out of it, it was almost like it was a dream. I knew it was real, but it wasn't like I'm in the same state of mind and I did something in the state of mind and now I feel bad. It was just like a separate thing, very much um, maybe disassociative a little bit. So, like I said, the reason for making this video is so that we can not only save lives, because women do kill themselves over this, but it is so that we can save lives from just the perpetual cyclical trauma of not understanding, one, that it's PMDD, and two, what to do about it. So the hydration is key, and I would say pampering and hydration have saved me. And I'll add one more thing. The only way to burn off that excess epinephrine, adrenaline that gets built up in our systems is exercise, strenuous exercise. Go work it off, go cycle or speed walking or something, whatever you can do, even if you have to just do it in your own place. I have a mountain bike on a stationary trainer. Sometimes I'll get on that, the treadmill, sometimes that, um, whatever you have to do to burn it off, that will help you. That helps a lot. And I've seen a lot of women talk about on the premenstrual dysphoric pages, when they start a workout routine, magically they feel better. And that is why. And probably because they're working out, they're also drinking more water. But they don't quite maybe understand the connection and what's actually happening biochemically, because it's not a hormone imbalance. It's extreme dehydration and a buildup of the norepinephrine in the bloodstream is the most recent research that I've seen, and what makes the most sense, and what I've found to be the best alleviation of symptoms. I wouldn't say it's a cure, but it alleviates the symptoms so dramatically. I need to work out more. I need to get more strenuous exercise, but it's just my favorite thing to do. So please like, subscribe, share with the crazy bitches in your life. And, the next time you see a crazy bitch, instead of ridiculing her, maybe try to consider that she might be having a premenstrual dysphoric meltdown. And although you probably can't at the time talk to her about it, maybe afterwards, if you actually know this person, recall that time and ask her if she started her period then or right after then. And my guess is it's yes, she did. So my kids need something from me, and I'm going to go check that out and see what it is. Thank you so much for watching. I truly, truly appreciate if you made it this far. And if you have gained any information, knowledge from this, please leave it in the comments below so others who may not watch the full video can at least get those little gems, pearls of wisdom from a crazy bitch. I love you.